We don't have a quorum yet, though.
Vanessa's asking for the call-in.
How many do we need?
4.
Oh, that was Vanessa.
Brian said he's gonna be 15 minutes late because it's the Globe's State of the City or Town.
Yeah.
Already have our, have the house on order. The legal stages. Huh? Yeah, already. Did you send her the PowerPoint? No. I have to take it with us because it won't, it's too big, it won't email. And then we'll use it, so.
Okay, but
Cat, your little kitty cat's scaring me over on her.
Everybody's like, that's good.
I know.
Huh? Yeah, that's my call. And then we gotta order the stuff at the Same Money Market for the 4th of July.
Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa.
Jim, since you're here,
Hi.
I don't hear Nathan on the phone. Do you want to run the meeting?
Sure. I call the meeting to order at 6:02. Roll call. Nathan Taylor, Valerie Garcia,
Here.
Vanessa Navarrete,
Here.
Jesse Arroyos, me here, Natalie Mendez,
Here.
Janine Duarte, Brian Sepula. Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I feel like you're supposed to play all. Okay, we do not have a consent, oh, we do. Did we get the minutes out from January? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the second motion.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. New business. So most of the new business is going to be presentations to us by the town manager. So Todd, will you update us on the land exchange?
Yes. The land exchange appraisal has been completed. The land exchange, the appraisal came back at $3.37 million and change for the 546 acres. It had some surprises in it. The reversionary right for the airport was $2,500. That's all the airport itself is costing us for 250 acres. But the cemetery costs $750,000.
Holy Toledo.
It has to be appraised for the highest and best use, and in this case, residential was the highest and best use. Where nobody's going to ever use it for anything but a cemetery, but the Fed doesn't care. That's what it appraised at, $750,000. We are currently working through one of the last pieces we need to do, which are easements for all the utilities that cross that property. There are 6 different utility companies with 9 different easements, and they all are under permits from the Fed. When we buy out the property, we have to replace them with another easement to replace it under the same terms. We can't charge them for anything for it. We just have to offer them the easement. We hired a surveyor to do that about 6 months ago. It's been a difficult survey. A lot of things are mismarked. There's a lot of old land use out there that confuse the issue, but we've finally started getting all the surveys done. I've got 4 of the surveys of the 6, and 1 signed easement agreement has come back. The other 2 are currently reviewing the contract. The 4th I found an error with and sent back to the surveyor, so We're still waiting on the last 3 surveys so we can get those easements completed. I have to have them before closing. After the record of decision, it was this clock started. That resolution had to cut us a check within 60 days. But we had to revise the contract because the original estimate for the property was 2.5, and the appraisal obviously came back higher than that. So resolution has agreed to make up the difference, but we have to revise the contract and complete it. There was a complication there. Some of the staff at the forestry have changed, and NHPA is, National Historic Preservation Act. We have to evaluate the property for historical cultural uses. There's about 29 sites on the property that have some historic mitigation necessary, and generally, once you have a plan on how you're going to mitigate those, then you can move forward with the exchange. But the new staff at forestry are unclear on that. They don't know if we have to mitigate it before we do the exchange. So we're trying to get clarification from the forestry on that. It's about $1.4 million difference because if you have to mitigate it up front, so it's not a small question. So we are trying to work through that. So obviously that would be enough to keep me busy for an entire profession, but it's just one of the things we're working on. So any questions on the land exchange?
So Todd, does that mean the 60 days has now become we'll see?
The 60 days, because we're revising the contract, that was where the original 60 days comes from. The timeline for that would have been, I believe, the 15th of next month. So we still have time to get this all done, but it's still an open question as to, when this will all be. There's a lot of moving pieces. So we're updating the contract. That has to go to council. The council meets on the 14th. The deadline's the 15th. So we're probably going to have to, give each other a little grace and wait for the time to get these things done. We can say we're going to get it done by this, but if it's just not physically able to do it, I don't know how we would possibly get it done in a day.
Wow, I had no idea that this was this complicated.
It's just, it is this complicated, and it is going to get more complicated. We're also running, right now, Elliot Pollock is doing a report study on the proposed land uses for that. I'm meeting with them on a regular basis. They are proposing some airport contiguous uses for employment districts. We want jobs out of this land. So we want to diversify our economy. That's calling for a lot of planning because it's on an airport. There's more complications with that because we'll have to modify. We have a contract on the grants we've gotten for the airport so far that says that the ADOT has to approve any land use switches. We did put it in our master plan and our airport layout plan, but we still have to get ADOT to sign off on it. ADOT doesn't even know how to sign off on it. I've asked. So I've got to work through that process as well. And we may have to do an airport layout plan, which isn't a big deal. We have the CAD for it. We'll just have to redo it. Probably a $10,000 project, but there's just a lot of moving parts on just this project, and it's, like I said, one of many we're working right now.
The part that I can understand how they come up with the $750,000 for the cemetery. I understand that. I have no idea how they decided the airport's only worth $2,500, but I'm not complaining.
Well, it's just because the airport, we already owned all the surface rights.
Right.
All we're getting is the reversionary right. So there's a reversionary right on the airport now, where if we sell off we can't sell off any of the property, we can't subdivide the property because it always has to be used as an airport, or we have to give it back to the federal government.
Right.
And that's an old agreement from the 50s. Over the years, it had some holdouts on it, like they had held back. We had the mineral rights, but they had held back the uranium rights. But then they changed the law and they signed over the uranium rights, so there aren't a lot of rights left on the property other than just the reversion right. So all we had to pay for was that single reversion. So that we can use
it still has to remain an airport?
No. Now we can subdivide it. We could, yes, it will have to remain an airport, not because of any of those requirements, but because we have signed a contract with ADOT to get funding to fix the airport up,
Okay, okay,
and that contract says that we have to maintain it as an airport.
okay. But we needed this so that we can have buildings near the runway, is that it?
We need this so we can subdivide off pieces and put industrial or
Yeah,
commercial or,
okay.
like, it includes all of the land across the highway on the north side, which
Right.
is gonna be commercial.
Right,
So we have to make sure, but if you look at the airport master plan, which a lot of us worked on, it does envision this future use, as does our general plan. So both of them were submitted to the state with that future use in mind. So, and as with the airport layout plan, we just have to get everybody to agree to that and sign off on it. And we've got some high-power consultants making plans for us, and so I'm meeting with them fairly regularly. And there's multiple consulting groups, because we've got Kilmeny Horn doing the airport part, we've got Elliott Pollock doing the economic development part, and those all meet in the same meetings with us, and we have to make all that work, so it's a lot. And Ioana is taking the lead on a lot of that.
okay, thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
No, and it's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, Todd, could we move on to the, discussion of the letter of intent with AES?
As part of our contract to Resolution Copper on the land exchange, they will forgive the money they're giving us. It's a loan, but they forgive the loan if we develop this to diversify our economy and for economic development. So we began recruiting very quickly to find somebody to come in there. So I watched a meeting with Coolidge. They were having a battery storage discussion, and a lot of NIMBYs came to the meeting and said a lot of silly things, and so they voted it down. It was AES, and we had contacts with the AES because the Heston, you may remember Heston from Resolution, he went to work with AES after that, so the mayor called Heston and asked if they would be interested in coming in our area. We showed them that property. There's a substation right next to it, a very large substation, which is going to be upgraded quite extensively to carry the load for Resolution, so it's a perfect spot to put a battery storage unit. It's also not the perfect spot to put much else, because the reason these land exchange properties were put into the land exchange originally in 2007 is the then town manager wanted to put a golf course on them. So I have the plan in my office from 2007 where we were going to build a golf course on that entire stretch of property, like 500-acre golf course, which would have been the Taj Mahal of golf courses. It anticipated us moving the airport and all this other stuff. So there are a lot of golf courses around us going broke and running out of water. So it's not exactly the highest and best use anymore. It might have been 20 years ago, but it's not now. So that land, however, because it was envisioned as a golf course, is very, it's got a lot of drainages. Silver King Wash and O'Neill Wash both go through that northern lot. There's a ton of high tension lines that go through there, so there's a ton of easements. There's a rail line that goes through there, a ton of easements. So it's very disrupted and disturbed property, so there's not a lot of flat buildable lots. So the AES agreement says that they're going to study 70 acres, but they're probably only going to end up leasing 15, because that's the only buildable in that whole 70 acres. So that'll tell you how much use we're going to make from that particular section of land. We might be able to use it for drainage projects or for something like that, but it's unlikely we're going to get another industrial up there.
So, okay, you think this may be the only industrial operation we have on that property?
On that far northern one, north of the railway.
Oh, okay.
And there's one section up there's kind of disconnected from the rest of the property, but it's north of the rail line. And this, battery storage has a lot of huge advantages for us. They don't need hydrants. You know, running a hydrant is a $1 million project. They don't need sewer. They could use septic up there because they only have one bathroom for 2 guys that work up there. It's not a major employer, but it provides some pretty good revenue streams to the town. We'll make $75,000 a year in lease payments. We'll make $150,000 a year in property tax. And we'll make $2 million plus in construction tax. So $250,000 a year and plus a windfall when they do build. it's an economic development win. Doesn't provide jobs. And so the rest of these properties, we're gonna have to really be focused on job producing.
Does this project on its own meet the requirement with resolution for forgiveness for the loan?
It's vague in the contract, but yeah. You know, it says that all we have to do is develop the property for economic development to the community, and yes, we're doing that. So getting this one in there, it checks that box. We'll have to keep developing it. It's not a one and done thing. We still have to do the rest of the property, but this is off to the races from day one, and with a good baseline in there, so we don't have this ticking clock with no money to develop the property and nothing to do. It's gonna generate some revenue. We can use some of that revenue if we need to do some more borrowing to fix roads and put hydrants.
Yeah,
So, it's the necessary first step. It's not the end, but it's the first step.
So I do have a question. You were saying that it's gonna be north of the highway, and it's north of the railroad track? So is it gonna be up on the hill like where the old dump was?
It's
Yes.
where the high tension wires are.
Yeah,
Where
on
the
the,
old
on the
dump-
ridge.
Okay, on that ridge?
They're gonna be on the top of the ridge, yes.
Okay.
So, put on your former fire chief hat. I realize you don't throw water on a battery fire, but I assume that these installations have a way to fight if they have a fire, so what is?
So they've gotten really sophisticated on this, because, there've been a few incidents and everybody was concerned about them,
Yeah.
so they all have their own built-in fire suppression systems. They're basically small C-train containers that are both isolated from each other. So if you have a thermal runaway, they have detectors in there that immediately put a fire suppressant on it that isolate it, and then and if it does spread to a container, it doesn't spread to any ones around it. So, our fire chief has visited the site, I visited the site. Their safety record's pretty impressive when you actually look at the numbers. There's a very small number of incidents for a very large number of installations.
Yeah,
So,
well, I read about the ones, there were a couple in California. It's like everything else, because it's something new, if there's an incident, it makes big news.
and there've been a few incidents where fire department gets the call, they go there and they pull out their hoses and they put water on
Yeah,
it,
wrong.
and they go boom. You don't do that. Generally, you surround, you keep everybody out of it, you don't put any water on it, you let that one unit burn out.
Okay.
So, yeah, again, there was a lot of anxiety around this in Coolidge. It was all fairly misplaced. It was excitable people, but it was also a different situation.
And I asked this question of the guys, the two people that presented at the town council meeting, but I'll run it by you. My understanding is they haven't figured out who they're selling their services to. So it could be a combination of Salt River Project and APS. But I guess my real question is, if I understand correctly, in part, this is supposed to make sure that there isn't an that at peak periods of usage, which the mine will create, that this provides a buffer. But my question as a resident is, if, like for instance, APS shuts off our power due to high winds and wildfire, would this be able to serve as a backup for the town?
No, it will not. It does not serve that purpose at all. They are not an end provider. What it does do is, at night, when there's not a huge drain on power and all the air conditioners are low idle, it charges the batteries. During the day, when everybody's air conditioner turns on, it releases that power back. That stabilizes our local grid and prevents it from being over too much drain put on it. So the basic thing it's doing is stabilizing the local grid. And the APS issue, turning off the power because of winds, totally different issue.
Okay.
That's just, they're worried about shorts and arcs that could go to ground instead of fire. And because they're swinging in the winds, they could hit together, they can throw an arc, and they can start a fire. The difference here is that we don't have the tall trees that all of the other areas above us have, And that's a lot of the concern. The same thing with the Paradise Fire in California.
Right.
It had old holders on the insulators were old, and the wires were swinging too much, and it was getting into the trees and arcing in the trees and setting the trees on fire. One of the things they've been doing in California for 10 years now is cutting every damn tree anywhere near a power line, and there's crews just 24/7 through the whole state doing this. We don't have the tree issue that they have. There are some trees here. So we've talked to APS. Currently, we are not on that plan for shutdown. Top of the world is, globe is, we are not.
Okay, thank you.
I do have another question. I don't know if you mentioned this or not. When is this expected to be, the project to start?
So they will start, once we have title on the property, they will start their due diligence period, which could go 1 to 5 years. They have to put in for a bid with SRP to get the battery storage procurement for this area. And if they do, then they will start build out. It will be done, best case 4 years. It could be 5 years before they would be built out. But we've met with SRP.
That's 4 or 5 years after they do their due diligence?
That the due diligence period is where they actually, make sure the property will work for what they want to do. They're going to make sure there's no underlying issues or drainage issues or access issues or anything like that would stop them from doing it. Once they do that, they lease the property. We start getting our lease payments, but they don't start construction until they put in, our SRP puts out an RFQ for proposals, and they will put in a proposal on this property. And if they are selected, then they'll build it.
Okay, but once they lease the land, you get the lease payments and you get property tax.
I get the lease payments, but the property tax is only essentially for property there. I mean, I'll get some property tax, but I will not get a significant amount until there's if you look at the valuation of their installation up there, it's probably $150, $200 million investment. The entire town put together is worth $270 million.
Okay.
So it's their rolling stock that are the value, not the, and they do have some exemptions, so we don't get full value from everything, but that's essentially what we're gonna get. There's a study happening now with GPEC, which is the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. That's an independent agency that's writing a report on the economic impacts to the community from this project. And they're gonna present that to us and to the council, so we know exactly how much we're gonna make. All the numbers I've given you so far are estimates based on the early calculations.
I do have another question. Does that property also have to be evaluated for cultural?
It already has been.
Okay.
And there is a study and a plan for it. For instance, all the way out on the very edge, there's a Hopi Pueblo. It's very small,
Right.
but it's all the way on the point of the hill.
Yes.
That's not within the footprint where they were gonna build, but if they do want to do anything there, they have to mitigate for that. They'll have to go do, archaeologists will have to dig out the site, determine what
Right.
the Hopi tribe would like us to do with that, and there've been cases where the tribe in question doesn't want anything going in. They just want it, like for instance, the one on Main and US 60. The Hopi were contacted and they just wanted it to go to landfill, and that's what happened. So it is up to the culture where that comes from to make that decision.
Okay, any more questions on this one? Okay, number C, update on the amended and related water commitments between the town of Superior and Resolution Copper. And I realize this is very complex, but if we could have an overview of what's going on.
This is much more complex than anything we've talked up to now, and based on what we've talked on, to tell you how big a deal this is. This agreement includes, it's based on the original mitigation agreement, and it does a few things. It just writ large, it restores the base flow to Queen Creek. So Queen Creek will get about, between all the sources and over the next decade or so, it will get 300 acre feet a year. 300 acre feet means the stream will be 8 feet wide and a foot deep going through town 10 months out of the year. Initially, it will be a very small stream. We did that restoration a few years ago, that test restoration, and you saw how much water that was. It flowed through the whole town, but it flowed at maybe 2-3 feet wide and maybe 3 or 4 inches deep. It wasn't a lot of water. But that water filled up all the alluvium all the way through town, so all the trees got water to drink, and all the riparian area was healthy and pretty, and all that is really the goal of this. It isn't necessarily to have a flowing stream on the surface. It's to have the riparian area in our shallow groundwater aquifer system recharged and able to support the life that it has supported for the last few thousand years. So that's job one. There are about 4 different elements that come together for that. There's an infiltration gallery above town that used to provide drinking water for the town. It gathers the water. We're going to take the water from there. We're going to pipe it past the old Lake Superior workings. So right above town was the first mine, the Lake Superior Magma Corporation. You can see the portal right in the creek. It undermined the creek fairly heavily. So all the tunnels go into the creek. It's also an old fractured zone where it's an old. So Superior is actually the center of a subsided caldera. That means it's a huge volcano, about 35 miles across. Picket Post is the center of it. And hundreds of millions of years ago, it exploded, which is what a caldera does. It blows out a big hole, and then it filled that hole in with ash and with everything else, and that compressed to create the Gila conglomerate, which is the thousands of feet deep block that we all sit on in Superior. That's why your backyard, you hit it, it's concrete, because caliche is pretty much concrete. So it's very similar chemically to concrete. And it acts a lot like concrete. So water doesn't infiltrate very well there. But there's a fault running above town, right along the ridge, right along the base of Apache Butte. And it lifted that entire ridge above town. We're actually sliding under it based on plate tectonics, on the millions of years scale. So by lifting that whole plate above us, it's fractured it, it's weathered it, it's much more porous, and everything is down here. This is all solid concrete. Up there, that's old, spalled, broken up concrete. So the water goes in underground, and it goes into those old workings, and then it goes to the pumps that Resolution uses to dewater their mine workings. So instead of coming to the town, the base flow goes to the pumps, and it gets pumped out to the treatment plant, and then pumped to irrigate crops at New Magma Irrigation District near Santan. So that's where that water's going. And it's about 471 acre feet a year. We had independent water people come up with that number. So they're going to restore a base plate to the creek for that. They're also going to pre-mitigate any future subsidence for the mine workings up there. So they say that it's unlikely that those impacts will ever be felt fully at the top, but they're going to pre-mitigate it anyway. They're going to give us 191 acre feet per year for the next 100 years to restore a base flow to the creek. We're going to do that with a retired water right from New Magma Irrigation District. So they used to have a crop there, and they're not irrigating that crop anymore, but they still have a well. So we can buy or lease that right to that well and use that water that we're shipping down to them to irrigate their crops, can bring it back up and put it in our creek. It's a complex way to do it, but you have to do this sort of complex things for water law, because there's 1,000 different water rights, and if you watch the news about the Colorado River Basin and everybody fighting over water rights, you just have to find the hoop and jump through that hoop. So that's going to be, the infiltration gallery is going to be about 100 acre feet, but infiltration gallery is very season dependent. So for a few months a year it'll produce a lot of water, and then it'll dry up. The wastewater treatment plant is going to put 40 acre feet into the creek. That's going to be seasonal because we always flush. So that's going to help restore part of the creek. They're going to bring up the 191 acre feet, and they're going to put that in the creek. There's also a perennial flow that comes out of the Never Sweat tunnel. The Never Sweat used to provide drinking water for the miners up there on the site. That was where they got their potable water. It goes into the Never Sweat, which is the rail line that goes all the way from the workings to right here at the 500 level right above town. And that's where it never hits the deep workings. It's very clean water, and they can restore it to the creek with a simple pipeline because it's just gravity flow. So between all those sources, that's where we're going to get the base flow from Clean Creek. That is one item of the 3 monster items that are in this contract. It's 25 pages long. The other items are a $5 million endowment to hire a watershed coordinator to look for watershed restoration projects. Like you saw what we did in Queen Creek. That's a watershed restoration project. We got rid of all the invasive species, we cut the trees off the ground, we allowed grasses to grow back in. That's a riparian area restoration. There is going to be an endowment, perpetual endowment, to pay match funding for grants and to hire a consultant to do the planning and everything to build those projects out for Superior. And that will be perpetual for the rest of our lives. There'll be money in that account. They'll use the interest to go out and do restoration projects. It's another big monster item. There's currently a water group that Jim's on, that I'm on, that we meet and we discuss those plans and what we think are the next big thing we want to do, and which one rises to the top and which one has problems and what's the regulatory environment, all that sort of stuff. There's a study being written right now that will probably be out in July, August. That's probably going to be a couple hundred pages long that lists all these projects out. And then we'll have a new coordinator to go and pick those out and start to build them. And then the third big bucket is the assured water supply question. So currently in Superior, I'm going to turn that off, I'm loud enough without. Currently Superior has all of our water comes from groundwater wells near Florence. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that system. It's a 26 mile long pipeline. It has custom built 1,000 horsepower pumps that drive it all the way from the bottom all the way to town. They can't even get the parts for them anymore. They have to have, anything goes wrong with those, they have to have them custom built. It's a very unique system built in the 40s and 50s by the mine when the sources up here started to dry up. So in order to get an assured water certificate under the current rules, you have to have a surface water source. You can't use groundwater to get assured water certificates. Without an assured water certificate, you cannot build a subdivision of over 5 houses. So no Highlands. We cannot do another subdivision like the Highlands unless we fix the assured water certificate issue. In order to do that, we have to connect our wellheads to a surface water source, and that would be the CAP canal. It's 9 miles away. We've done the numbers on what we have to do in order to do that. It's $20 million. We don't have. Resolution has agreed to pay the money to bring that pipe, to connect the CAP canal to the Desert Wellfield, and to connect the New Magma Irrigation District to the Desert Wellfield. So there'll be 2 pipelines. The New Magma Irrigation District will be recovering water from long-term storage credits. They've given us the 371 acre feet. They've given it to us as 15,000 acre feet of long-term storage credits. So that's 40 years worth they gave us up front. And we can use that with the CAP allotment that the town had 20 years ago, which we signed over to Arizona Water, and we add that to our long-term storage credits and maybe other sources if we need to, and we bring those to the Desert Wellfield, and we can get assured water certificates, and the town can actually have housing. Without it, all we can build are apartments, RV parks, and build to rent. And build to rent, an example, is the tiny home subdivision that's going up, because you can't build anything else in town. You can't get a permit. You can get infill. You can build one house that's vacant because the house is knocked down. You can't build a new subdivision. So once the Highlands filled up, no more single-family subdivision homes.
So Todd, is this just a big windfall for Arizona Water, or does this new water that's going to come does it belong to the town? Does it belong to Arizona Water? It belongs, for instance, the CAP water. It was given, we got our CAP allotment when the CAP stuff was done originally, right? It was done in the 90s, the town got an allotment. They couldn't afford to pay for it. So they signed it over to Arizona Water, and Arizona Water paid for it. And it was something like $40,000 a year they're paying on this. So they
But that CAP allotment can only be used to benefit the town. So it'll recharge into our aquifers. It will make sure we have a shared water supply. It will make sure the town has water for the next 100 years. For our point of view, that means that the town can survive. That's the important issue. They get to bank that water and resell it to us, but they also have to pump it up to us. They have to treat it. They have to chlorinate it. They have to make sure their system stays working. So it's, I mean, from our point of view, it is, we could resell this. The 15,000 acre feet is probably worth $9 million, but then the town would dry up and blow away. We have to have this source to make sure that we assure the town's safety for the next 100 years. And this is what this agreement does. This means that we have water so that your grandkids can stay here. And it's generational. This is a generational agreement. Because we're going to build pipelines that are persistent capital improvements that are going to last 40, 50 years. And that's going to bring water up to like a recharge basin by the desert well field. It's going to recharge water next to those wells. So we can bring it all up, bank it there, and then pump it up to us for our, so we can do what we want to do with our lives and have water. So huge deal. And it's not like if we had the money and we could write a check that we'd be writing a check to every member of the town. What cares to the people? Why would if you're a townsperson and the town has a $9 million windfall and we spend it all on streets, but you don't have any water?
Yeah.
So let's consider it more like a strategic investment in the town's future than in a potential windfall for someone. And they're not banking it either. They're not reselling it. They can only use it for our benefit.
Okay, but this is, if I understood what you were telling me before the meeting, the formal signing of all these different parts with resolution has not taken place yet.
The agreement's agreed upon, but they are a multinational, and it's a large enough dollar sign one that it has to be approved at the highest ranks of the company. And they're trying to decide whether the head of the entire division comes out and signs it, or if they authorize the local CEO to sign it. So, but once that decision's made, then we will have a signing ceremony, and it's approved by both sides at this point. It's just who gets to sign it.
Okay, how does, I mean, I understand all this, and it all makes sense, but then when we're at the watershed meeting, we have the idea that supposedly we can get all this water that's coming off of the watershed above town, and that we could dam this up and have a lake and be pumping it up and down.
Okay, so you're talking about one plan that's been very vocal.
Yes.
What the study will do is it will select certain things that could have a full feasibility test. And a full feasibility test means they do the math. How much would this cost? How much would it store? What would it produce? And the plan I've seen would not pass the feasibility phase, but maybe it evolves into something else. You can't build it the way it's proposed. It's not.
I'm not
possible.
convinced that the amount of water he says is up there.
It's based on a order of magnitude miscalculation. The core thing is that when they do it, we've done all the modeling because we had to get to this point. We hired external consultants. There's 3 or 4 different models on how much water flows in the creek and everything else. What is misunderstood is if you do the math on all the water that falls on the surface and you say that's how much water we have, then you'll think we have a ton of water. But only 10% of the water that falls on the surface runs off. The rest of it sinks in, it evaporates on the surface again, it's drunk by the plants, you never see it in the creek. So we're talking 10% of the water that falls on the surface. That's the disconnect. That's the order of magnitude.
That's why you keep saying at the meetings, let's do a feasibility study. Because you don't have to argue, it will show that it's not going to work.
Math is math, there's no debate on math. And I mean, I'm very good at doing math in my head and knowing what I know, but sometimes we have to bring in consultants outside to tell people what I know so that they can they
Yeah.
can sign off on it, which is what we had to do with all these water agreements. Nothing was done on these water agreements without an outside expert coming in and telling him I wasn't lying to him.
No, I remember I don't know if you guys know this, but the town went to the resolution and said, this amount of water is disappearing from the creek, and,
They told him it was 500 acre feet.
well, you came up with a number and said, we'd be willing to settle for this, and they said, no, we want a full-blown study, and the full-blown study came out that we got more water than you were asking for.
No, I told him that 500, I told him 500 was going to the underground. I told them that if they give us 250 back, that we would agree to that and we'd move on. And they said no, they would not give us anything without a scientific study. And we almost walked from the deal, but in the end, we decided that we were going to gamble that we were right. And so they brought in a consultant to review all the numbers. We had told them it was 500 acre feet. The experts did a bunch of different models. The average of all the models was 471 acre feet. So that's what we got. Because they had agreed, we said, we'll agree to all these studies if you agree up front that whatever that report says, you'll give us.
Okay. So we
And
got
they agreed
471
on it.
instead of 250.
Huh?
We got 471 instead of 250.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And it wasn't a local decision, to be frank. These are such big numbers that we were speaking to Rio Tinto Corporate out of Washington, D.C. We weren't speaking to local people.
I've tried to explain some of this to other people, and then I go to a meeting and I go, oh yeah, no, I didn't completely understand this, and there's a lot going on. And one of the things I worry about, and I'm, talking to Todd about, is at some point we need to be able to communicate this to all of the residents. There's a lot of misinformation, but you can look at some of this and you go, I know this is wrong, but I can't explain everything that is happening. So anyway, do you guys have any other questions?
I have a question.
Shoot.
Okay, so you said how you can't build houses and you have to build more apartments. How do people start moving here if you can only build apartments?
Exactly. There's a whole nother housing conversation we could have a whole night on, but the concern from our point of view and the mayor's point of view is that if they can't have housing, they're going to either get an RVs or somebody's going to try to install a man camp.
Are you going to build more RV parks?
There are currently 3 RV parks that are under permitting. So the council will have to decide whether they're going to approve a conditional use permit for them. We're talking about 300 spots for RVs. So, but they've started submitting their permits. But they can't build anything else. It's not like we can say, oh no, you need to build single family housing there. They can't, because the state changed the rules we're in the Phoenix AMA. So we're in advanced management area, which means every drop of surface and groundwater is accounted for. If you use water, it has to come from somewhere. The way you determine that you can build a house is you have to have a certificate saying that we have 100 years of water guaranteed, or you can't build a subdivision. And we used to be able to do that with our groundwater wells, because they're great groundwater wells. They've been there since the 40s. They've never gone down. They're strong wells. But the governor changed the rules 2 years ago. She said you have to have a sustainable surface source, or you cannot get an insured water certificate. So we can't build anything now.
So Todd, can you comment on the court case this week where supposedly that was struck down?
I asked the water company about that, and
Yeah.
they said, well, number one, it's going to be appealed, so it's
No.
so it's not going to go into effect anytime soon. But it also affects more. It's more about drilling wells and other things than it is about our issue, and it probably won't help us at all.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
I asked the same question. I mean, is this it?
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the very vague description on the radio, it gives you that impression. But
It's not.
water rules are so complex. It's just insane the amount of legal mechanisms you have to figure out. Like we're getting a type 2 right? So a type 2 right means it's a retired water right that's not tied to a property. There's also a type 1 right, which is a retired right that can only be used on that property. So we have to lease a well. You can take a type 2 rate and move it to any other well, but you have to find a well that can produce enough water for that, close enough to the place you need to use it, that you can actually get the water there. And you don't, for instance, us getting a well in town and using the type 2 right there would do nothing for us, because we'd be sucking from our one aquifer just to put it back in the same aquifer, right? You want to bring it in from all that water we're shipping 1,800 acre feet a year to the New Magma Irrigation District. It's irrigating crops, primarily alfalfa. Alfalfa is a whole other conversation we could talk about
Yeah.
all night. 70% of the water in the Phoenix AMA goes to agriculture. 1% goes to mining. So that's what give you you'll start listening to some of the water conversation. Alfalfa for export is about 70 times more bad for the water system than mining is. But we're going to talk about mining because I don't know why. But all the water that used to come to our creek, that used to recharge our aquifers, is going to New Magma Irrigation District. So we're going to get a well down there. We're going to bring that water back up.
Yeah, but now I understand some of this has to do with certification. I was always told, at least 10 years ago, the idea was that when Resolution went into production, all that water that's going down to the New Magma area was going to be used for processing.
It will eventually, 5 to 10 years from now.
Okay, so when the new West plant is built, that water will be used there, plus some additional water that they have banked.
Yes, they've banked 350,000 acre feet,
Yeah.
which is, we're getting 15,000 acre feet, and it's enough for, pretty much the town's use for 40 years. It's 15,000 acre feet. So we use 270 acre feet a year for the town, 400 when you consider all the commercial users and Resolution and everybody else. So compare that to the 350,000 they've got banked. I mean, it's a huge amount of water they've stored.
I mean, this is completely off the subject, but the technology for how much water they're going to use keeps improving, and then now they're talking about, well, they talked about this 10 years ago, but the technology is getting better. When I worked for gold mines in South America, I saw this in Chile. They're talking about dry stacking, and that would use even less water. And I think Vicky said to me at one point, they may end up in a situation where they have more water than they need.
Yeah, and that is the conversation now. The 350,000 is probably more than they're going to need for their production, which means they won't be depleting any local groundwater aquifers or anything else. Especially if we can work out recharges for the local area, so we bring that water up and recharge it into the local aquifer, and when they pull it out, it's a net positive. So there's a term in for the United Nations, it's net positive groundwater, so that you have an operation coming into the area, and you do a lot of reclamation projects and everything else to make sure that your water use is a net positive. There's more water coming in than you're using. And that's kind of the goal that we as a town have probably reached with this agreement, but the mines probably still has a little bit more work to prove out. They're going to have to do the water balances for the final build up before we know that's true.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Hearing none. We don't have call to the public. Call to the public. Anybody want to speak? No. Current events? You guys have anything you want to share?
I have a current event.
Okay.
So the softball team and I play in Motown tomorrow, and we're ranked number 1 for softball, and playoffs on the website in the school.
Very cool.
We invite everybody to come.
We invite everyone to come for a game.
So obviously this is a home game.
One of the first playoff games.
One of the first playoff games
Okay.
is home.
Okay, great.
And it's the end of the year, and our plates are full. We have honors banquet, we have sports banquets, we have the Optimist dinner, the senior key ceremony, so a graduation, the 8th grade promotion, and senior graduation. All of it's on our social media, and
Is the key ceremony, is it gonna be at town council meeting or
It'll be,
separate?
at 6 o'clock.
It's going to be at the school board meeting.
Oh, it's gonna be at
Oh,
the school board meeting
Yes.
after all, this year, okay.
Oh,
So it won't be at Message Park like
No.
it has been in the past, okay. So, and that's the first Wednesday of the month.
And we already gave them the invitations,
Yeah.
Mrs. Vines.
Okay.
And then school's over.
I so wish that was a thing for me still.
Yeah, school hasn't been over for quite a while. The only thing I'd bring up is one of the projects that Todd and I work on is it's either the Stone Dip Park or the Rails Park, and it's moving forward. And with Boyce Thompson, I think it's June 13th, it's a Saturday from like 9 to 11. They're gonna have an event where you make seed balls.
Yes.
And so, that's cool, and the Rotary Club is gonna provide sodas, water, and snacks. So,
It's a fabulous restoration thing too, because then if like there's fires around town and we could teach people how to do seed balls, they could do restoration after fires. You could throw out the seed balls and native grasses and flowers and stuff come back rather than the invasives. So definitely something we'd want to get as many people known about as possible.
yeah, so, one of the things with the Coleman Alley Park and this park, we're trying to have an educational thing and help, we work with Boyce Thompson, and we're trying to get people to see what grows in the desert, that we're not, trying to do lawns and, anyway, so I have been dumbfounded about how many meetings and how much money it takes to do 2 little parks, but I hope that in the future that these, the more that we can make our town a place people want to be, and that there are different options, I think that's great. I like the idea of these pocket parks. We'll see what kind of use we get out of them. Anything
Even
else?
if they don't have a lot of recreational use, they'll serve their purpose, which is aquifer recharge. It gathers water that comes off storm drains and allows it to sink into the ground. So that's yet another watershed restoration project.
Thank you. Okay, if that's it, our next meeting is scheduled for May 28th, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
We make a motion.
You don't have to. You can if you want. It's not required, but you can make the motion.
Good night, thank you,
I can make a
Vanessa.
motion.
There you go.
And you can second it.
All those in favor, aye. Okay, motion carried.
We already lost Vanessa.
Obviously, she voted for adjournment, so.
I didn't ask her if she wanted.
Adjournment is one of those things that you can ask for, but you don't have to. You don't have to have a motion to adjourn, you can just adjourn.
If Nathan's not here, I'm lost.
Well, Nathan's pretty awesome.
He said he got busy, that's why he couldn't come.